Joining me now is Congresswoman Anna Eshoo of California. She is the ranking member on the House Energy and Commerce's Health Subcommittee. Welcome, Congresswoman.
It's good to be with you. Thank you.
Well, last month you held a big hearing on the Health Subcommittee, and CMS was taking some bipartisan heat about what we've been talking about regarding FDA's approval of treatments, but CMS not giving total green light on coverage. Can you tell us a little bit about that hearing, and where do we go from here?
Well, thank you for having me with you to have this discussion. I think it's important to restate that this is a progressive disease. Alzheimer's is a progressive disease, and it's a fatal disease. And we have an awful lot of people in this country that are now in this lane and have been given the diagnosis that they have mild Alzheimer's. So the discussion at the committee with the CMS administrator was, well, I raised it. It actually was not the label of the hearing, but I did use it for this because it needed to be discussed. I wanted to raise it. The Veterans Administration, under the Secretary, Dennis McDonough, took the decision that with the new drug that is, I think, going to be out and available by the beginning of July of this year, that all veterans would benefit from that. All they had to do was to see their doctor. Doctor would ask, I don't know, 10, 15 questions, make the determination if they were a candidate for a prescription of this drug, and that's it. But when it comes to Medicare, which is under the leadership of the administrator, that's not the case. And that's where I part company with her. In fact, the question that I asked her was the following. I have constituents. The husband is a veteran, served in the armed forces to defend our country. He's been diagnosed with mild Alzheimer's. So he has access to the drug. His wife is diagnosed, and this is not unusual. His wife is diagnosed with mild Alzheimer's. She's a Medicare beneficiary. What happens to her? What do I tell my constituents? So my goal, and I believe it's the goal on a bipartisan basis at the committee, thrilled that I raised it, that the chairman of the subcommittee spoke to it, as did others, is that the administrator of Medicare and Medicaid follow the lead of the Veterans Administration. You cannot put the people in our country that have gotten this diagnosis, their families are beside themselves, that some can have access to the medication, and that so many others don't. Now, this is a medication, obviously, for a progressive disease. It has demonstrated itself to defer the manifestations of the disease, the progression of the disease, by some 17 months. People are desperate for those 17 months. They deserve to have that. And then, God willing, hopefully, there'll be another breakthrough at the end of that time. But so that is really what I spoke to in a very forceful way at the committee. The administrator wants to set up a registry. I mean, it is some long, winding, complicated road. And when I questioned her, what have you done to establish this registry? Mm-hmm. Do doctors in the country, have they been advised of this? What's been set up? Nothing. So, and time is of the essence, Bob. with these patients. We need to optimize that time, and
Absolutely.
so that's what took place at the committee.
But it must be frustrating. I mean, this is, I think, what a lot of people outside of Washington don't get. I mean, you have different government agencies. They have different purposes. FDA has a different job than CMS. But, you know, from the standpoint of, you mentioned the VA, headed by Dennis McDonough, former White House chief of staff. One government entity covers Leqembi, and then the other one basically doesn't, at least as of right now. I mean, how can one government agency greenlight it and another one not when you're dealing with the same drug?
But Bob, that's exactly what I said to the administrator.
Here, and you got a
leg
long
to
answer,
stand on.
long
You
complicated
don't have
answer.
I said you don't have a leg to stand on because of the VA. It's a drug that fully approved by the FDA. So in terms of efficacy and the testing, the results, the clinical trials, so there isn't any question. First of all, that is a high hurdle because the FDA is the gold standard in the world in terms of its processes, its approval, and as I said, the approval process. So that speaks volumes in and of itself. That the secretary of the VA said, of course, veterans will have access to this. They just need to see their doctor, answer some questions. The doctor finds them to be an appropriate patient for this drug. The drug will be covered. And then you come to Medicare. Medicare covers a lot of people in our country. So I hope that and so importantly, Bob, members from both sides of the aisle spoke very forcefully on this. And this disease is not a Democratic disease or a Republican disease. This just strikes anyone, and across many age groups as well. So hopefully we can set this. Now, in terms of a registry that would track patients as they're taking the drug and developing data across a period of time, I'm not opposed to that because I think you can gather some very important information tracking that. But this can't be used as a roadblock. No way. No way.
Do you
No
think
way.
there should be some process change that if FDA deems a drug treatment safe and effective, then Medicare should cover it? I mean, it's hard to make the case, and I guess CMS is making some version of this, but okay, it's safe and effective, but it's not reasonable and necessary, or at least not fully yet.
Bob, you really raised a very important point because FDA also approves medical devices in our country. And one of the major complaints from the medical device people, highly innovative, and they're really put through all of the scrutiny in the world, which they should be, because these are things that are implanted in our bodies. But they get the approval of FDA, they get over to the other side of the ledger, and they have to start all over again. You know what there is involved in this, Bob?
What?
Money. Money. Money.
In what way?
Money. So, but this has to be about the medicine.
I see. Yes.
And what that medicine represents. This medicine, this drug represents hope. It gives people a lifeline for almost 2 years. We have it. No one should be denied of it.
My last question goes to legislation. We talked about oversight, and Congress has a very important duty in overseeing the administration, the executive branch. But the Energy and Commerce Committee has a vast jurisdiction, specifically on healthcare. Do you think that the committee should move legislation, or do you think more this is an appropriations process where funds have to be dedicated to Alzheimer's and other diseases as well?
Well, the Congress has stepped up in many ways. I mean, we have made heavy, appropriate investments at the NIH, National Institutes of Health, for research, for R&D, research and development. There are many manifestations of dollars invested in healthcare. This particular issue, I don't think we have time to legislate on it. I mean, the drug is going to be out right after, I think it's something like July 6th. It doesn't need legislation. You see, the drug will already have been approved. The clinical trials say what they say. The veterans will have access to it. The administrator of CMS, all she has to do is say so, and it's done.
Yep. Yep, and as you mentioned, there are a lot of people who are waiting, and the clock is ticking. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us today.
Well, it's wonderful to be with you, and it's wonderful because it gives me an opportunity, to help place a spotlight on this. Alzheimer's is a killer, and it wreaks such havoc, chaos, and sadness into the lives of the extended family. And I think that Medicare should cover this, period.
Absolutely.
Without question.
We will be watching. We will be watching. Thank you, Congresswoman.
Okay, thank you.